Welcome to Daggers and Shadow Daddies.
We're your hosts, Ryan and Adriana.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
How does she not know that she is happier, healthier, all around better when she's at the night court?
Oh, I think she does.
The entire time she's there, both times, because we start in chapter 6 where she is there and we end on chapter 10 and 11 where she is back there. And she talks about how she's eating. She doesn't talk about a single nightmare. She doesn't talk about any stresses. She doesn't talk about any of that stuff. She actually doesn't even seem to be thinking about spring court. It's almost like, thank God I have a break from that place. And she can just check out, relax, like little week vacation. And then she goes back. And then it's like the day of, she's stressed.
Well, so I don't think it's denial of the spring court, or I'm sorry, the night court being good for her. I think it's mostly, I think she just really hates Ryson. Recent.
Yeah, recent or resand.
Resand. I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's a hard D. Who does that? Who puts the hard D? The Shadow Dead D. Hard D.
Well, yes. And he seems very, now that we are this far, he seems less lustful about her and more mission driven. Or at least that's the vibe that I'm getting from him, because he's given her a deal. Anytime that they're talking, it's about reaching goals of reading, of training, and mental guards. It is all about reaching these goals. And he seems a lot more mission driven, but she's being included in it. As Tamlin is also very mission driven, but she's not included.
No, I would agree. I think some of what Rhysand is attracted to with her is her power, though. Like, I kind of had a similar thought where I'm like, hey, at least he's not just being horny all the time. Like, he's trying to help. He's a helpful amount of horny right now. And I think that's awesome.
There is no such thing.
I agree to disagree. Listen, sometimes I'm so horny, all I want to do is help you get your other things done so that I can just horn up on you. That's kind of what he's doing.
Okay.
He's like, listen, I want to blow your back out, but to do that, we're probably going to have to save the world. So let's get you trained up. Also, I think he's like, before we have sex, I want to be able to be convinced that I'm still the greatest.
Whatever.
Anyway.
He has some ulterior motive for all of this. And I have some notes hidden in here about this, like the timing of when he made the deal and where she was at versus now. I think there's
ulterior motives aside, though. I think that there's still a very real possibility that he's genuinely curious and then also attracted to her power, because he comes off like the kind of guy that just doesn't want to be bored.
She is now mysterious to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's curious. And I think that makes total sense. Number one, I think he fights or battles more internally with his time with Amarantha than anybody else, probably because he was abused in several ways. I kind of don't appreciate part of the angle they're going with at it, but that's neither here nor there.
But I mean, it is a valid point. And that was something in chapter 11 last night that the narrator went back and added in a new line, which we have now learned when the narrator's voice changes, that is the author making changes to the book and that they need to push it out quickly to make changes to the audiobook, was about his time under the mountain and his own traumas with Amarantha.
So I do want to touch on this. That could just be a possibility, a likelihood even. It could also just be that the audiobook person recording it.
It is, but it's also, it is an important...
No. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm letting you know that we don't know it for certain.
Okay.
Like, if you're the person that recorded this audiobook and you could tell us otherwise, I would love to read that.
Yes. Either way, it really stood out as just a sentence about him letting her know of what he's been through.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying I'm dreading a little bit if they decide to take that route with it, of exploring his trauma more before we actually get anything with her sorted out. Because now it's been so many chapters.
Well, I could see that will happen in order to garner more sympathy for him before it gets into hers. So then the way that it's handled for hers is at least explained.
I don't know, man. I don't even think we need more sympathy for anybody. I think we could acknowledge that if you were placed ostensibly.
He was a sex slave.
In indentured servitude. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you were placed in that position.
Yeah.
In some point or another. First of all, sex slave. I'm so sorry, but also boohoo a little bit. Like, I get it. If it's not somebody you want to be with, if he hasn't, like, there's been nothing to his character to show us that he was in any way an unwilling participant up until, like, really at the very end where he's like, hey, listen, that lady, fucking hate her. I'm going to try to stab her. And then she magics him into a wall in the last book, right? Leading up to that point,
I thought it was very
he doesn't
clear
complain.
He was not a willing participant. Who is he supposed to complain to?
Literally anybody where they're like, you're Amarantha's whore. He'd be like, dude, I don't want to be Amarantha's whore.
Well,
Instead, he makes it seem like, yeah, I throw her a bone once in a while and she lets me go outside. It's more of a quid pro quo arrangement in the first book, is what we're led to believe. You know what I mean?
yes, until he sits down and has the heart-to-heart with Feyre.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The majority of the first book,
Yeah, okay.
it's shown to be more of a quid pro quo exchange.
But now that we know otherwise.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I don't feel like we need to explore his super heavily for hers to be worked through. But I think his, I guess, I'm not saying that we shouldn't acknowledge that he is damaged from what he's processing.
Yeah.
But God damn it, can we please just fix the lady who's having to come apart right now first? And then...
Yeah. Well, and we see him starting into that at the end of chapter 11. And maybe that's kind of where you ended on in chapter 11. Like, we were just getting into working through her issues. Let's continue.
Yeah, honestly.
And I wouldn't allow us to continue reading.
Well, and honestly, I think there's so many little areas of it that I'm excited for, right? Like, obviously, you were right. I'm going to start off with that, where you were like,
What?
Feyre, the Tears of the Kingdom, getting the superpowers.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good theory.
Yeah.
I think that was your theory.
Yeah, because it was like bubbling up inside of her.
I
And that's also how it works in Tears of the Kingdom, wasn't it?
kind of. I don't remember.
He gets he collects all of the tears and he gets a piece of their power so he can fight Ganon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ganondorf, I think. I don't remember which one. And I don't know if that's an important distinction. He's going to fight the bad wizard, which is sort of what she's going to do.
Yeah.
He's the Demon King, the King of Hybern. Could be
Yes.
the Demon King of Hybern. Doesn't matter. Anyway, you're right.
Doing
It's
like a
video game.
Cusco moment.
Squick, squiggity squicker.
Let's start at chapter 6. Going from there. Do you remember
Oh
what
my
happened this, or do you need a little recap?
Oh, man. I need a recap, and I want to apologize to the Rhys fans, because I do get it.
I am a Rhys fan. You can apologize to me.
I have been. I don't know more. Okay, give me, what happens in chapter 6?
She meets Rhys's cousin. So this will be after he says, you're going to read.
And this is,
And then it moves into the next morning and she meets Morrigan.
oh my God, I thought it was Mel.
No, her nickname is Moore.
More. Yeah. I'm going with more, because Morrigan is
Yeah.
not
And it's not Morgan like regular
the horse.
Morgan. Yeah, it's like Morrigan or something like that.
Yeah, 'cause
I'm trying to
Morgan-
spell it.
because Morgan is a horse/boy name.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
If you ever find this, you'll know who that's for. Horse boy.
Stop.
All right. Now I'm done.
So she meets her, and then I looked up fan art from her, and this is going to be an odd one. This character, the way that everyone drew her, they have her as obviously a gorgeous, I think, blonde bombshell with a red dress, and this is exactly like the girl on the blackjack signs on the way to a town famous for its casinos. There's all these. There's a town
Hold on.
famous for the casinos.
Well,
Okay, not a city,
famous.
not a city.
I sincerely thought you were talking about Las Vegas, which is so funny. And
Yeah.
then the way you,
2 hours away from Vegas.
well, I love it. Now you're just throwing out odd random details, which aren't accurate either, just to make it more ambiguous. This is so funny to me.
Do you know the sign?
I do.
It's on the out.
No, I don't know a sign.
interstate.
I know the town you're talking about, which is really funny because now I'm trying to go through all the signs and I can picture the ones with motorcycles.
Oh, you don't see all the bombshell ladies on these with like a Like
It's a lot of
as
ways,
soon
to be
as I
fair.
saw-
But I'm picturing a Jessica Rabbit with blonde hair.
I don't know. As soon as I saw these, I was just like, casino, because we have so many signs for casinos, and they have a woman in a red dress because you always bet on red.
Oh, is that the rule?
That's kind of the.
Is that the roulette thing?
Are you not reading the sign?
I'm not going to lie to you. While I'm driving, I'm really not paying attention to the sign. I'm not paying that much attention to the signs. And if I see a lady in red, the last thing I'm going to do is start looking at words.
So already, I just kind of view Morrigan as she likes to play blackjack. And in my head, that's just what she does in the evening. So she goes away, she's playing blackjack.
She's a casino lady. You
Yeah.
know, lots of people, they
And
don't
she's
get it.
really good.
She's so good at blackjack. No, I'm just picturing Jessica Rabbit, but blonde.
Well, that's
But
way
with like
hotter version than I have going.
No, I have to do this. Because you were like, maybe you can hear shadow ladies. And I'm like, oh, okay, shadow lady. And then they showed up, but they didn't make them into people. They gave this person such a formidable personality to start with. Formidable may not be the right word.
I don't even
But I
really
feel
fully
like-
understand what that means.
It would be like to seem domineering, I think.
Mm.
And I think she does, in a sense where she's like, hey, you're my best friend.
Almost like the female Rhys version.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is she
Yeah.
comes off like, it doesn't really matter what you have to say about it. We're going to be friends.
Yeah.
And then it's
I
like,
find
hey,
it
I'll just
adorable.
wait for you to come to me. It's fine. That's what I mean. I liked that. And I'm like, okay, well, if they're going to give us a shadow lady, I hope it's her.
Oh, and I want to address, it turns out Russet is brown.
We were corrected. Thank you, person.
Well, I also Googled it afterwards. I'm like, I'm sorry to think this is... I should have Googled it while we were talking.
We got so far into this before we ever thought of Googling it. We're like,
Oh, I Googled
we've addressed it twice. We made a video about it. We're like, well, who cares?
Where do you think Moore was instead of being under the mountain?
Well, is it ever brought up that Moore definitively was not under the mountain?
Yes.
Then I think Moore was under this mountain.
Yeah. Okay.
First
It
of all,
was-
like, you're going to hide
Uh-huh.
somewhere in the mountains.
She was cut off from talking and continued to tell Feyre where she was.
Yeah, I think she was under this mountain ruling hell.
And then my last little note in here for chapter 6, and I don't know if we kind of confirm it later. No, we don't really confirm it at this point. Of me wondering if Tamlin knows that she could be an unintentional informant to Riorson, and that's why he doesn't tell her things.
Yeah, so I also had that thought where I was like, okay, the smart play here is don't fuck around with a lady who's cursed to your enemy or who's your perceived enemy. I think what really upsets me, though, about this whole idea is we know, right, as the reader, that Tamlin is the one constantly pressing her for information. Rhys doesn't really give a shit. He's like, you don't need to tell me anything. I kind of know everything already. It's going to be good. But Tamlin is a real prick.
Yeah, that's where I don't think it's out of having intelligence on Rhyson's skill to be able to read her mind. And well, he would have it, but it seems like Tamlin's motives are different than, oh, she could be an informant in order to protect her secrets. I can't tell Feyre. Instead, it seems like a lot of his actions are driven differently.
I think if I'm being completely honest, I think Tamlin comes off like the kind of guy that he just doesn't want her opinion. He doesn't want her being involved. He doesn't want her thoughts on it because he knows she'll have those.
Do you think it's because she's a woman?
Yeah, okay, so I do think that sexism is like this broad thing, especially in the Spring Court. For whatever reason, I think the Night Court so far has been showed to be the opposite.
We haven't seen enough women.
We haven't seen another man in the Night Court.
Oh.
We've only seen 3 women in his house. The twins and Mare.
More.
Like, that's it. And then they've talked about the 2, Aziraphale and...
Azriel and Cassian. They talked
Oh,
about
shit. There we go. Not Aziraphale.
Aziraphale.
Good Omens in my head now. God, that was a good show. Anyway. Yeah, and I think that those 2 will end up being like really badass, like band of brothers type of thing. Especially because when Feyre mentions them to Tamlin and who's our other guy?
Lucian. They didn't really respond.
They did. Her lips pursed or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So she was like, oh, there's some concern. But then he immediately was like, Don't fucking worry about them. What else can you tell me about his maps?
And she just spills her guts. She like broke in 2 seconds.
Listen, here's what happened. In this chapter, we learn Tamlin's an asshole.
Wait, in this chapter, she wasn't even in Springcourt. What chapter do you think we're on right now?
The one where she's giving up all our secrets?
No, we were just finishing up chapter 6.
Well,
into chapter 7.
How does chapter 6 end?
I don't remember. I think it has to do with something with reading and her getting frustrated, because into chapter 7, my notes kind of go into he wants to train her for a reason, but I don't know why. So chapter 7 is at that stage where he's talking about we need to train, you need to read, you need to do your shields. I don't know.
So I truly think that he wants to train her specifically because she can be such a big ally, especially if she has all the same superpowers as all the High Lords. Why wouldn't you want that? That's your all-around superhero.
I agree. And I think he's cluing into she probably has these powers, but he made this deal with her before that happened, before she had these powers.
Oh, to be fair, I think he's lonely. I think he is so impossibly lonely.
What? And he can't find a woman?
I don't think it's that he couldn't find one. I think
so he goes and gets Tamlin's?
Yeah, I think while you're under the mountain and everybody's calling you Amarantha's horse, the thing that you want is just something that somebody else has and makes you feel big. Like, I think at that time it was like, well, if she does survive it, cool beans, I get to piss off old Tam. And if she doesn't survive, who gives a shit? We're all indentured servants anyway. Like, at that point, he had nothing to lose through giving her a bad deal. And I think that this was kind of the point of him being written to be this arrogant, but deep down kind of insecure fella, because he's so damaged. Like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with his entrance was so good. That alone bought him so many points for me. And he didn't really do anything for it. It was just, boom, thunderclap. He's there. It's badass.
It would also make sense that it'll take you some time to fall in love with a man while reading a book. I mean, it'll be easier for me to fall in love with a man, but...
Well, I don't even expect love. I just want to... I want to get to the point with these characters where I can pick the ones that I would want to be around.
Okay.
Or even the one that I would want to insert myself in their position.
Okay,
things, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there really isn't one that I want to insert myself in. Well, now it sounds a little weird.
Insert myself into.
I mean, to be fair, I think I'd fuck Riorson, marry Tamlin for the riches, and kill Lucian because I don't need the sarcasm. No, I think, I don't think I'm going to live vicariously through any of them.
I like when you used insert.
Yeah, okay. And I stand by those. I think if anybody's getting fucked here, it's, I mean, I don't know at this point. I'm not fucking any of them because they're all so selfish. But right now, Riorson is the one that I'm enjoying the most because he's allowing her to grow. Not just allowing, he's demanding growth from her.
Yeah, and they all have their own goals and motivations.
Well, and I think personality-wise, there are areas where, like, Riorson is just, he's actively pursuing his own. Like, his goal isn't necessarily entirely Feyre.
Mm-hmm.
But Tamlin's goal is protect Feyre. Everything else he does kind of is in service to that, so to speak.
Protecting her. At least that's what we get now. It was also in this chapter that Rhys tells her there can be high ladies. As when Tamlin was going down on her, he said there are no high ladies. Is that just who has knowledge to something and who doesn't? Or do you think Tamlin was lying?
I think it's similar to the method of like her superpowers, where Tamlin's like, nope, you don't have superpowers. Not going to happen. And Rhys is like, are you like a little bit fucking curious? I think you probably got superpowers. And then eventually it sounded like Rhys was certain that she had everybody's superpowers. And it was like, Tamlin's like, it wasn't super likely. Yet Rhys still seems surprised and excited every time she exhibits some of them. So I think Rhys sometimes speaks in absolutes. Actually, I take that back.
He speaks with confidence. Sometimes you do this.
Yeah,
you
but it's a mistake.
And I was like, wait, that's for sure? And you're like, well, no. I'm like, wait, you said it so confidently.
I don't say it like, but this is the thing though. I do see where you're coming from. And I think that it's a hard distinction to make between saying something confidently and just saying it as if it is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think occasionally you're right. I have to catch myself with this because I'll be like, oh, this is a fun thought experiment. And I'll just say something to see what you'll say back. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, that sounded like I was just definitively telling you something. This is the way to
I relate it to you speak more often in active voice and I speak more often in passive voice is the difference that I view it as.
And I'm not intelligent enough to know the difference.
Yeah, it's more where I'll use he would, could, should, likely,
Sure.
maybe, possibly. I use that in a lot of my language, and that's very passive.
It's so strange to me, though, because you do use that language a lot, but that is not in your behavior at all.
Oh, my behavior.
You are the person who is the most in control of everything.
Very controlling.
Well, I just mean like you're not okay with things not being a very specific way, but you do often speak like this could be this could be that. But then if I offer a counterpoint, that's actually how I find out how certain you are.
Is countering, disagreeing.
Well, and it happens so rarely. If I even say no to you, our kids thought I said no to you a couple weeks ago, and they came to me and they were like, "Why did you tell mom no? What was that about?" I was like, I didn't really tell your mom no, and I couldn't remember. I don't remember what it was. But our kids are just like, "What made you think you had the authority?" And
talk to our mother that way.
Well, it's really funny because then I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "If mom wants something, you don't tell mom no." I'm like, I don't tell her no. That's how you guys should know better. But no, I'm thinking about, you do say this, but now like if I disagree with your opinion, that's how I actually find out how definitive your opinion is. Where if I'm like, hey, I don't think this needs more soy sauce, and you would be like, well, I think it does. And you'll say that as you're pouring more in it. Because you'll act like it's like just my opinion, but it's also the way it's going to be.
Yeah. All of this about whether or not Rhys speaks in absolutes and if Tamlin was lying or not.
Well, it's the thing though. Rhys and Tamlin speak the same way. Like the way that they are communicating with her.
No, I think Rhys is way more forthcoming with information.
Absolutely. The way in which he conveys his thoughts is exactly in the same confidence as Tamlin.
You okay with confidence, but I still think that he speaks more kindly to her and shows a lot more care and compassion. Tamlin has not once mentioned anything about Feyre's health, waking up to her puking, anything in relation to it. Just completely ignores it.
No, I agree. And I think that Rhys's way of dealing with it is much better overall.
Yeah, because he's checking in with her. And at the beginning, I thought Tamlin wasn't, because he's going through his own battles. He's like, I'm also trying to survive and keep my head above water. And I just thought that he couldn't for her at this time. But now he really doesn't have that excuse.
Does he not? Like, I'm in fairness, I think Tamlin has a shitload more going on than anybody else in the story.
Yeah, I gotta make sure he gets his taxes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that really sucks. But I think objectively, his court is not necessarily more affected than everybody else's, but I think his court is probably one of the more difficult ones to currently manage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I had this. Rhys couldn't have had this grand plan of using her powers when he decided to train her. But I wondered if when he made the deal, he wanted to use her as a spy, but now she's becoming something more and more and more to him. Not only in getting powers, but also he is starting to care for her a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think Rhys. I think they have their mating bond.
I don't know.
So
we don't know enough about it yet.
Yeah.
But if it's like imprinting,
baby duck.
He imprinted first.
Yeah, no, yeah, she baby ducked him.
I just kind of wondered, because he was tied to her and he could feel her emotions and all of that he was caring for her more, even though, because it's like a one-way path at that point.
But was it?
Because she keeps sending everything that way.
Yeah, and I wonder about the intentionality of that.
What do you think about the conversation that, with her eavesdropping, the phrase is when Rhys and Mor's voice floated towards me. I was like, that's a fun way to say you're eavesdropping. Oh, their voices are floating towards me. We're in a public area.
Honestly,
I'm doing nothing wrong.
I can't hear it. I can't help but hear it. That's what I meant.
They're doing this to me. Their voices floated to me. I didn't go to their voices.
Noise, please get out of my ears.
Oh, stop.
Gross. Leave me alone.
What do you think of that conversation?
I don't even remember the conversation they were having.
Moore and Rhys were talking about a attack that happened at one of their villages, and all of the high priestess were killed, or nearly all of them. It was something to that effect.
Okay. Well, I think they had that conversation in a way so that she could overhear it.
Yep.
Right. I think that was kind of intentional. And then I don't know. It gave me more questions as to how the high priestesses work.
Yes.
So there were 12. Now there are 11, right? Presumptively, there are 11
Yeah, it made me wonder if...
Who got promoted?
Iantha. Well, yeah, I just don't understand high priestess and how that works. I thought there were only 12. Maybe there's more.
No,
why were there so
explicitly
many?
said the 7 high lords and the 12 priestesses rule over the
Yeah, and this was nearly every... Oh, I have every priestess. Maybe there's... I think it's that. I don't think there were high priestess that died. I think it was just priestesses. Oh my gosh, too many. Maybe.
I don't know what the plural of them are.
I just wonder if that they are not really like the equivalent of lesser fae. It's just there's a status order and they aren't high priestesses.
Well, yeah. So and this is where I don't necessarily understand the whole distinction between, so you have lesser fae, high lords. You don't have lesser lords. First of all, which, fine, I get it. We only have 3 tiers of individuals, right? But then for the priestesses, we just have priestess and high priestess? Or do we have like priestess, high priestess, priestess lords?
I don't
Lord
know.
priestesses?
Yeah.
Whatever.
And this is also where Azriel and Cassian were mentioned. And they were just pissed. Like the reaction, I wrote this as... They were pissed that they died? Like, what an odd... I don't know. Anyways, they were pissed thinking this is a group to gain territory.
What?
Because I wondered if it had something to do with Iantha.
Oh, and maybe. But then when she asks about the group, he's like, there's a group of fuckers that live around here and they keep messing with things. So we're just hunting them down and killing them. They're like these rogue bandits. They go around, trying to take the law into their own hands and establish society in their own way. I imagine them a lot like a carnival of bad guys.
And that makes sense because Tamlin didn't really seem to be aware of this group when he wasn't caught up on that. He was caught up on the names. Like,
can you name a town because it's such a mysterious place?
And he knew of this town, but barely. He said that Tamlin said it's one of the few. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what was really funny to me was thinking about the fact of you can have an entire country that's like this secretive, right? What? How can you have a country this secretive?
What I was going to share next. Winnowing is like teleporting. I wondered how Rhys teleported her so quickly to the night court. Turns out it was winnowing. This is a real word.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was a made up word.
I mean, if you really think about it, all words are made up words.
You're such a good word.
I'm here to help.
Do you think that other High Lords can do that or just Rhys?
No, I don't even think you need to be a High Lord because More. God damn it. Every time I get one name figured out, they add another one. No, More can do it as well.
Oh.
And it's a rare skill is what he says.
Oh, okay.
So I don't believe it's only High Lords, but I think it's specifically a handful of powerful people. And of course, the distance that you could do it is determined by the overall power, right?
That makes sense. And it also is how he's getting in and out of the spring court and his sarcasm of, you should fix your wards.
To be fair, I think the wards should still be able to keep him out of there, though.
Yeah.
If they were good and he wasn't, the most powerful, handsome fella.
I'm just so handsome. That's how I get through these wards.
Honestly, I would not doubt it. If they're like, how do you get through the wards? And he just like gives an eyebrow to it. And the guards are like, let him pass.
I love the sentences that Rhys gave her to practice with.
Okay. I was entertained and I'm still entertained by it. I will admit, after a little while, I'm like, hearing the name Rhysand 1,000 times is probably what I needed to remember his name. But it felt more like...
is an excellent lover.
No, he's the greatest lover a female can have. I don't like the use of female and male in this, but I think it's because this was written before the red pill shit got so crazy.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, anytime I hear somebody refer to an individual as female, I'm like, why are we doing this?
Gives you the ick.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like, ooh, for female. you're a female. And I'm like, why are we, like, goddamn, this is so unnecessary. You can say a woman. I don't see what the difference here is.
Yeah.
Do you?
No. Overall, I like the sentences that he gave her. And then he dropped off some books. And I don't think, and that's where I want to ask you, did she end up reading them by the end of this?
Mhm.
Or she did?
Yeah.
Well, she went back to Spring Court?
Oh, I don't know. She hadn't gone back to the Spring Court and done anything at the end of where we had landed.
I do like
She just
that.
barely arrived at the Spring Court.
Yeah. I do like that she took it seriously when she went back to continue practicing putting up like shields, her guard, up and down while practicing reading, which even though she's not quite acting the way that I would want her to, such as spilling her guts to Tamlin instead of trying to figure this stuff out on her own, like who's to get information from people and kind of solving it on her own, she's at least taking it seriously for, I need to read and I need to do this and this is what I can do while I'm back here, which I think is showing she's starting to clue in that she is happier at Night Court.
Yeah. And again, I don't know that it's like a mystery that she's happier at the Night Court.
She's not acknowledging it to herself, at least.
But I think it's in the same sense if you're like, oh, vacation was nice. I wasn't thinking about all the shit I still had to do.
Yeah, it's like a vacation. It's just like a nice little stop time.
Yeah, and it's where she goes to eat healthily again and like relax a bit, not wake up from her. Or she still has the nightmares. But
I don't think she is.
Well, but she did the first night she was there. She said, I woke up from my nightmare and was immediately calmed by the night sky and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay.
Remember? She didn't feel the need to throw up.
You on that, yeah.
But, and I don't know if it's a recurring deal there or not.
This last time, they haven't mentioned it.
No, but this last time I didn't really mention a lot outside of some of the words she was getting. Oh, okay, I have a question. In my brain, I'm like, the Fae must be super intelligent beings, right?
Yeah.
You would think, because they're faster, stronger, blah, blah, blah. Maybe their brain's extra, wrinkly. That's what I'm assuming. They're like smooth brain humans, get the fuck over there. But here's my hang up. If it takes 75 years to reach maturity, do they age that slowly as a child or do they mature that slowly mentally? Because otherwise, in 75 years, how slow must you be at learning things? If it took you 75 years to become a functioning adult.
You're saying.
Yeah. Like somebody's like, oh, wow, he knows so many words. He's getting so big. How old is he? And they're like, oh, he's 33 years old.
I guess I kind of related it to the longer an infant is in the incubation period, the more intelligent it is.
Yeah, but that's not even entirely true.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of a debunked thing also. Like gestation period to intelligence overall.
Yeah. I was just saying that's where I put it to.
Yeah, but they're 75 years old when they're considered adults. Like, I hear where you're coming from as far as...
But it's all
it takes a while to develop
it's
it.
relative to humans.
Okay, let me try this. I imagine the way that dogs and cats look at how long it takes a human to become relatively self-sufficient. They're like, wow, that's a long time, right? But also...
Toddler.
Yeah.
My kids could walk in 2 months.
My kids didn't even make it 2 minutes out of the womb before they could somewhat walk on their own. Yeah. So I'm not suggesting that that's the wild part, but that's where it is literally a difference in physical development versus capability. Like my dog is quite old and he hasn't learned people words yet. He understands a couple, but he has yet to have uttered one to me.
So far, I don't think that they're that much intelligent compared to humans. Like a little bit,
They must be
so
less.
much.
I think they must be slower is what I'm getting at, because otherwise, can you imagine you're 65 years old and your mom's still having to explain to you to make your bed? Like, have you thought about this? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, what do they do for school? Like, oh, well, after we paid for 65 years of daycare, for the last 10 years of their life, they go to Fae school. Like, what the fuck happened?
I just think that they have, because of their long life, maybe adolescence and all of that is just viewed differently.
I think that's entirely possible, but I'm just imagining what could still be considered something you have to learn.
How much life experience do kids get by age 16? Not a lot, and it's especially in relation to...
But it's actually the way they experience time, because a 20-year-old person that lives to be 50 years old versus a 20-year-old person that will live to be 100 years old isn't they're not twice as mature because they're only going to live to be 50 years old.
Okay, yeah. I just thought the expectation of what...
I hear what you're saying. I'm just imagining how slow you have to be at learning and grasping things for them to not think you should be on your own before 75 years old. They're like, he put another fork in the goddamn microwave. No, Susan, that's it. He's going to be here until he's 83 at this rate.
The cheesy mac again.
Yeah. You imagine the investment.
75 years of this.
Yeah, like I do imagine that their bodies just aren't completely mature until 75 years old, maybe.
Maybe.
But also then the terrible 20s. Is that what it is? Like, you know, a whole decade of them? It's just wild to me. I don't know. I'm so sorry. That was such a tangent, but it was bothering me so much. I was thinking about this last night, listening to it. I'm like, motherfucker, why do I keep assuming these people are intelligent? They are the slowest learners. They're like 75 years. That means that somebody got knocked up like before they went in the mountain, right? They had that baby under the mountain, and that baby is not yet an adult. Even though it has lived through the entire Amarantha phase, it knows nothing different, and it's still the equivalent of a 12-year-old child. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Well,
it was really a funny take. I never considered that. She goes back, and this is when she spills her guts to Tamlin and Lucian. I was like, that was so fast.
I remember this. It was about the reading. Did she read the books?
Yeah.
Okay.
She read.
They're all like, you can learn to read in a month. Like, what an insane thing, because it took you guys 45 years. But also, I assume they just have more words. But then she was reading there was some word that she like picked up on, or she had read out loud to us as the reader. And it was not superfluous, but it was something similar to that, where I'm just like, my God, are they just showing off that she knows words now? Like, she was like, I learned new words along the way. I'm like, the best way to learn new words is context, of course. But if you're just reading the word superfluous, you're not going to get that from context most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's asking the maids.
Anyways,
sorry, back to your thing.
You forward.
Please do, because I am so stuck on this. She gave up everything right away.
Chapter 8.
Oh my God.
We move
so
into...
much faster. I am so sorry.
You are okay. The taxes, the tithing shows up, and it's going through the people, giving their things. And my little thing is, love how she gives credit where credit's due on the water fairy's perkiness. She's like talking about the water fairy being nude and just like it's coming off as like this
perky tits
this poor fairy, and she's like she's got great tits.
Well, here's the funny thing though. Even the way that like the great tits are described, it's like, don't worry, the hair covers the parts that you want to see, and you're like, ma'am, I think you should stop staring at
you
this.
Might not only be into men.
Yeah, you might also like fish titties. Like, I need you to chill out. But then also...
But no, I think that's good. If she swings both ways, that's will be a really fun
It's
book.
just bestiality. It was just fish tits.
Talking about what Tamlin is, beast form, and them doing it, I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so this is an interesting book to dance around with community guidelines on social media. What do you think of that scene with her showing up, perky tits and all, with nothing in hand for Tamlin? Tamlin's like...
Yeah, I think that it would be, overall, I think it was a great scene because it showed that Feyre still has some semblance of her humanity. And that's the only part of this that I really got that, where she remembered what it was like to be starving and struggling. And we also learned that Tamlin is a person who operates solely by the rules, not because the way it should be, but the way it is.
And that's where I think that it has its place. It's not that I agree with that type of ruling. It does have its place, and that's where Feyre is not his girl because he needs someone that is also like that.
Feyre's not his girl because he needs anything from her. To be fair, she broke the curse, but that's all he needed from her. In his mind, now all she needs to do is love him.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
It was also around this time that she was starting to clue in that Tamlin knows more than he's letting on, such as protecting her, the guards, everyone being like cautious. It was just, there is war coming, and he says he's in denial, but yet he's showing signs of there's war coming. I also noticed that it was in this scene that she was cluing in that Tamlin knew more than he was letting on, such as there's more guards, there's guards around her when the water fairy, comes up. And I think Lucian like gets in between, and that's when she's like, "Oh, you are thinking like, what threat are you worried about?"
We'll call her the titty mermaid.
And I think she has black hair
She does. And black eyes.
and no nose.
Oh, 2 slits for the nose, for the nostrils. She's kind of got like gray alien vibes. It's literally the drowners from The Witcher.
Oh,
is how
I was
it's described.
thinking of from Harry Potter, Voldemort
Oh,
with long dark hair.
titties.
Yeah, the big titties.
Oh my God.
Quirky ones.
Weirdly, I think you fixed Voldemort for me. That's all he was missing. Yeah, okay, so we keep hearing about her tits, but we didn't hear anything about nips. And
Oh,
we heard about gills.
it was also here that Tamlin gives the cringy like someday about being pregnant and having a son. This is what I
When
want.
my son will do it after me.
And then
Yeah.
he's like, and someday.
no.
So cringy.
No, I completely agree. I think his whole thing of wanting a family makes sense if you think about the fact that he's like 700 years old.
Yeah.
He's like, my biological clock isn't a thing, so I didn't think about it, but I'm seeing everybody else has had these kids, and I think I'd like to give it a try. And at some point, he's got to be wondering if he's shooting blanks.
No.
You don't think so? They have a lot
They
of
have
sex.
some type of control. Oh, very early in the book, there's potions.
I hate that they do this. Like, I do get it, but this is the second
address
fantasy
it?
book in a row.
They address it immediately because they want to throw all of that out the window so then we aren't concerned about it. They're like, yeah, we got through that awkward little moment where I used the word of like, whatever, I don't even,
But then-
something potion.
But we didn't need to, because it was like double covered our bases later when Alice discusses how difficult it is for Faye to conceive.
Yeah.
So really, it was just like, Feyre's not going to get pregnant with a pig farmer. And don't worry about the Fae boys, because their swimmers are incredibly slow.
Ever.
Their sperm aren't even mature until 6 months after they've ejaculated. I made that joke and I enjoyed it so much I couldn't keep myself from laughing. That wasn't even that good of a joke, but I loved it. Just imagining it's the frog life cycle.
Oh, stop.
I'm so sorry.
Overall, it was very cringy of the pregnant thing. And the fact that she didn't just like, oh, I am not getting married to this man. Because she was not like, yay, Tamlin babies.
Well, here's my favorite.
That's how I felt about my ex. I was just telling my coworkers, I'm just like, oh, I remember that he asked me to marry him. And I was like, well, no, we aren't engaged. But, you know, a promise, sure. And then I thought of us having kids. And I'm like, oh, they'd be so ugly. We're moving on from this man.
All right, hold on. But it was better with me?
Yes.
I don't think I'm better looking than...
Look how cute our kids are.
Yeah, they're incredibly good looking. And I think that comes from you. Like, you brought that to the table. I gave them their build. You gave them their nice features.
We make beautiful kids.
We do. But does that
you
make
think-
us ugly people?
Oh, no.
Isn't that how the math works?
Yeah, that's how the math works.
No, but you're really, really pretty. I think I'm ugly enough.
Whatever.
We got
Stop
this.
it.
We've
You're
done it.
handsome.
Oh,
I
no,
love
I'm
you.
charming.
You're charming and
I'm
handsome.
not that good looking. I'm the Tamlin, remember?
No.
Everybody's
You don't
disappointed.
have the blonde, long hair.
Everybody's disappointed. They're like, this cannot be our shadow papa.
I don't think that Rhys requires tithing from his people.
No, because I think he is Lucifer. He's Satan in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, again, nobody should require anything. You guys all have magic. Like,
Why
we've
would
been over
we
this.
think? Yeah, you're only getting riches that you don't even need.
If you have magic, why does gold matter? Why do you give a shit about gems? You can magic shit clean. Dude, I'd be, again, just walking around nude. Magic really would provide me the opportunity to be the insufferable dick that I would become, for sure. I think Rhys requires servitude. I think he values that control.
Yeah, we still don't know yet. Well, I'm excited to learn more about the Night
I
Court.
agree.
I wondered if the fairy would have been thought to have stolen those jewels, like when it was happening. She's like, take these, and I was like, she's gonna go sell
She's
them.
framing this bitch.
Yeah, she's gonna go sell them. They're like, we know you did not get this. There's no way Feyre gave these to you, and these are obviously Feyre's.
I do like that they immediately acknowledge that everybody saw it happen.
Yeah.
And word is spread throughout the kingdom. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the other part of this that really kills me is Feyre had to do all of this. And Tamlin's like, I'm not doing it because if I bend the rules, I got to bend them for everybody. And be like, that's not actually how rules work. Like, everybody knows that cops can give you a warning. And yes, we would all like a warning. But does everybody throw a huge tantrum when you don't get a warning for speeding?
Yeah, that's where Tamlin's just being a butthole.
And I think the same thing kind of applies. Like, oh, we can't type. There are no fish, right, is what she keeps saying. There are no fish. Can you not magic some fucking fish or magic them some food? I don't understand how it works. Maybe they can't magic life into existence.
Well, not all the fairies have it. So I don't think the water fairy can do it.
No, but Tamlin could.
Yeah, he could.
If this tithe is that important, why wouldn't you do something to behoove this individual so that your 10% isn't the one of 10 fish that they're going to find this week?
I don't think that it's about what they receive from the tithe. I think it's more ceremonial.
But wouldn't it be cool? Like, and now I realize that this is how everybody thinks. I'm not breaking new ground here. But the entire idea societally that kind of goes in with this is if you can benefit the people on the bottom, right? The people who are having the most difficult time in society, you in turn benefit the entirety of society.
Yeah.
And if you only benefit the people at the top of society, it doesn't do anything for people below because trickle-down bullshit isn't real.
Yeah, and that's where I'm excited to see what happens in the Night Court and how those things, because I think that's going to be a major turning point for Feyre to be like, wow, I really like how the way things are done here, because it's not just about these are the rules and this is what we do. And that's also why I think the tithing is less about what they receive and more ceremonial, especially given Iantha gains her power from ceremonies.
True.
It is not about what they receive from the people. It's the fact that their people are giving them things. This is what we do.
Okay, so am I the only one that was a little bit concerned when he's like, I do this because my father did this, his father before him, and so on and so forth. But they also killed all their human people.
What do you mean?
Didn't they kill their humans instead of turning them loose? Or did he turn them loose?
That's a good point.
I thought he killed them.
Somebody did that. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought his dad was like, yeah, we didn't turn him loose. We just,
Yeah, that did happen at some point.
So when he's like, I do this because my father did it. Like, you do everything because if your dad jumped off a bridge, would you do that too?
Well, I think we're going to find some of those moments where it is...
Tamlin is merciless in certain ways. And it really bothered me.
But he later admits that she was right.
Yeah, but it doesn't change his actions.
You're right. They have the discussion with her and Lucien and Tamlin about this event. He's like, why did you do it? She then sees through his eyes, Lucien's eyes, and she talks about, oh, I bet I know who I got this from, right? The ability to do that.
It's not the first time she's done it.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say. Nice. She did it before when she died.
Well, and this is what makes me think that she and Rhys already have some sort of a connection, even prior to the she turned Fae thing.
Before she turned Fae, but after the deal.
Yes. So I do think that the deal has something to do with it, but it's almost like a bearing of a curse, right? Like a mark.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, I think they actually just have like a more intimate, natural, like imprinted thing. And I don't think it had necessarily occurred to the two of them. And I don't think it's occurred to Feyre yet. I think it occurred to Rhys at the end of last book.
And then she leaves burn marks in the table when she walked away.
And everybody pretends like it doesn't happen, like it didn't.
Yeah, Tamlin constantly just is in denial. There's no way they don't see the burn marks eventually.
To be fair, Tamlin is also having tantrums and destroying things. What I'm learning is the only adult Fae so far that we have met is, what's her name?
Alice.
Yeah.
Because, in chapter 9, nothing really happens. It's her and Alice talking. And it's about the same event of, you did this. Which is where I think what she did for the water fairy will be a major, major benefit to her later.
Yeah, and I think that's why Alice is like, she won't ever forget, and her sisters won't ever forget. They will all help you out when your time of need comes. Is kind of the idea, like when she's assembling the super soldiers.
Yeah, there's going to be a time when she is against them, but it's going to be okay.
I'm imagining it's like a Little Rascals moment where like they're all like gathering up for their teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Little Rascals is probably not a good reference for this. But you know what I mean? Where it was like, don't worry, we got like Ocean's 12, like we got our water people. And it's like just these perky-titted fish. And they're spiky teeth, angler teeth. The angler fish, those are the teeth I was
that's what I picture.
Just the sharp gnashing.
And the narrator did so good on the voice too for the water fairy.
Honestly, yeah. The Titty Mermaid is probably one of the best described characters so far because the eyes, like big, black, wet pools of just darkness. And I think that there's, in like the way that she was bowing even, in like begging for more and more mercy, more or less, in like until her hair was brushing the marble of the floor.
When this was happening, I was like, is she just showing her butthole to everyone behind her?
Behind her is like, wow. That is a wild look at, like, why? The balloon not as wrinklier because she's always in the water.
After she talks to Alice, she goes and she talks to Tamlin. And then it was such an odd, it was so cold. It was such a cold conversation. And it seems like they constantly are trying to band-aid things by having sex.
Which I understand.
I don't even know if they have sex at this. It just seems like...
They kind of did remember. The following day, they had sex in the field.
Blows up at her.
Oh, post that, I don't think they do.
Yes, they do. Because...
Actually, you're right, the next morning.
And he's like constantly like making love to her and just like she is a goddess to like just worshiping her body after this argument. Or not even argument, when he explodes, right? And in my head, I'm like, why weren't you doing that before, Tamlin?
In her relationship with Riorson is like a friends with benefits type of thing where there's this mutual sort of, not even respect, but kind of like benefit to it. And then one of them gets feelings, and that'll be Rhys, who initially has feelings. And then she's going to struggle with the fact of, I didn't set appropriate boundaries with this dude. So now I'm developing feelings, even though I still have Tamlin. And I'm going to be a little bit befuddled by this.
Well, it was also around here when she does say that she doesn't want to marry him, or at least cluing him in that she has pause of wanting to marry him.
What do you mean? The clue was there when they were going to get married.
I know, but he wasn't really, that's why he blew up, was her talking about that.
Here's the crazy thing, though. So your bride leaves your wedding by being scooped up by this other dude who, for whatever reason, has just custody that week, right? You planned it poorly. Rhys has picked her up. Would you, if you're Tamlin in this situation, have it set up so that wedding is taking place when she arrives back? You know she's only gone for 7 days.
Yeah.
But yet, this next spree, that nobody's even discussing, trying to organize the wedding or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Tamlin is aware, in a way, where he's like, oh man.
Why do you think he exploded like that? And he's like, it just happens. It's just this. And that kind of falls into you where the immaturity of, you've been around for how long and you don't have a control on your power and emotion right now. And blames others instead of himself. And he does that. He blames the tithing and his powers.
Stress.
And he does not blame himself.
And it takes no responsibility for anything.
None.
Moral of the story, take responsibility for your shit. Stop every time you make a mistake. You have to stop just acting like it's going to get better because time is passing.
Yeah,
because we don't see effort.
Is even just the way that they have sex afterwards. Like, she points out the difference of him worshiping her body as a way of just saying sorry and sorry and sorry for blowing up. But then he never acknowledges that she shielded, that she protected herself from him.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that given what happened to the gift, that it was completely obliterated, she would be dead if she didn't have that power. He would have killed her.
Yeah, presumptively. And here's the thing, even if she wasn't dead, we keep hearing him apologize. We don't see him take any action to change.
Yeah.
And in another area where I think it's just immaturity. And I think there may be some realism to this because I think we know adults in real life that do the same thing.
Yeah.
There are constant apologies and acknowledgement of what they're doing, but there isn't an action to show that there's an actual acknowledgement of like, hey, no, you know what? I fucked up. Here's what I can do to work on that. He is the only area that he's made any change is in her freedom, so to speak, where he's like, okay, some fewer guards.
Yeah.
But he knew this was bothering her already, and he had already apologized for it. It wasn't until she gave him more or less an ultimatum that he made a change.
Yeah.
So,
and he's also love bombing, and he is just has a temper.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, outside of her value as being seen as the savior, the curse breaker, whatever, I wonder what it is about her that kind of makes him continue, because he doesn't behave in other ways like he loves her.
No, that's where I think it is all about there's some type of goal or purpose, and she is a symbol. He needs to protect this symbol to his people. It all falls back into insecurity. He wants to be viewed as powerful by his people. He has some goal in mind. I don't know what the goal is, but there is some goal. And Feyre being this, I'm going to use icon of trust and security in what Tamlin does to his people.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what it comes off as to me is like, when people are friends and they get really, really close, they're like, oh my God, we should date, but they don't actually have chemistry.
Yeah, that's those two. They don't have any chemistry. It just...
The sex is good.
Yeah.
Enough, anyway, for the two of them.
Well, it definitely sounds like with this book ramping up in its spicy level, I do feel more that Feyre is enjoying that with Tamlin, as opposed to the first book. It didn't really seem like she was enjoying it as much. And it was after their argument, after he does his apologies and all that stuff, right? And it's Rhys shows up. And it was so sad that his smile faltered when he saw, like, oh, you guys were doing it. Okay, well, anyways, it's time to go.
Yeah,
it's just a sad, awkward moment.
I don't know. I remember being in that spot ostensibly.
Yeah.
It didn't, break my heart that you were with. I was bummed out that you were dating somebody else. But to be fair, I was dating other people too. And I think that's where acknowledging, I think it's immaturity on his end too, where it's like, it reminds me of that song Jesse's Girl, and I'm not saying that because I have attachment to that song.
I think that is exactly the moment.
Yeah. And she's loving him with that body, I just know it. And he's just like, God damn it. But then it's also like, dude, get a fucking grip. Every woman who you see and think that you want is not somehow owed to you. Let her, if she's enjoying it, let her enjoy that. And if your mission is to provide her fulfillment in other ways or even help in other ways, still be helpful, still help fulfill those other purposes. I would argue that's how we were for almost a year.
But I like comparing this all to Jesse's Girl.
Yeah, because he's like, Tamlin is a friend. Yeah, he's been a good friend of mine. Tamlin's got himself a girl and I want to make her mine. And she's watching him with those rusted eyes.
She doesn't have rusted eyes.
I know, she doesn't.
I think Tamlin really would give anything for Feyre.
No, because he's not willing to separate from his ego.
Yeah.
I think he's willing to give any physical thing. For instance, when he said, what do you want? You can have anything. If Rhys had said,
your power,
I want your kingdom, your court, I don't think Tamlin says yes.
In that moment, I think whatever it was that Rhys, it seemed like Rhys did have something and he didn't ask it because he knew Tamlin would say no. And that would hurt Feyre. And then he still leaves and takes Feyre after finding this out to his court. I think it was just no, I'll continue to be the asshole because I don't want Feyre hurt by what you would say to what I ask.
He could have said, I want to come here once a month for a week, train Feyre. Just train her, teach her to read, train her in our
But the deal was
ways.
Specifically, you come stay with me for a week.
Yeah, correct. I think, but this is where I think if Rhys was truly just looking for the benefit of Parenthia.
Yeah, Parenthia.
Yeah, if he was truly looking for just the benefit of that and also willing to work it all with Tamlin on this, and it wasn't just a matter of Feyre eventually falling in love with him as his goal, then he would go, okay, we can do all the same things I'm currently doing, but here once a month.
Yeah, but I think part of this is Rhys doesn't want Tamlin to know what's going on, what his goals and plans are. And if Tamlin's watching all of it, Tamlin's back in power over the situation, and Rhys does not and should not give that up.
But why does Rhys not want him to know that there's a war coming. Like, if you're going to need all of Parinthia to fight the King of Hybern.
I think he thinks Tamlin is on the other side.
Ooh, I hadn't considered that. Instead, I thought Tamlin's head's in the sand. Like, Tamlin just got power back, and now he's not willing to use it.
I'm wondering if Rhys is thinking that Tamlin is going to be on the wrong side. Wrong side by Rhys's standards.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Huh. Yeah, no, I hadn't considered that at all.
But overall, so Tamlin tries to make a deal with him for Feyre, but just earlier he was talking about what a good situation this actually is, that Feyre can bring back information about his enemy.
Also true.
And yet he's trying to break the deal. So he was like, oh no, this will be a good thing. We can get information about Rhys this way. We can learn about this. Tell us all that you can and whatnot. But then when it came back to, all right, here's the second time to go. And he's just like, I'm trying to end it. As I thought we ended on, this is a good thing.
No, that's a good point. I looked at it more like he was trying to see the silver lining of their situation.
I think that probably was. He's trying to see the good side to it. And then when it came down to her leaving again, it was difficult.
Yeah, and I can kind of understand that. That's sort of the same thing of when somebody has to go somewhere for work, you're like, wow, that really sucks. But also it benefits you in this way, right? Like they're working, they're doing this and that. So I kind of picture it like he sees it as Feyre is a traveling knowledge salesman.
Yeah.
Like, she's a Jehovah's Witness. Once a week, she goes out, preaches a good word of Tamlin in the night court, and then steals the information from Rhys, comes back. Up to this point, to be fair, she's been an excellent informant.
Mm-hmm.
Because she left nothing on the table, and she should have omitted so many things that just did not matter. Like, to be fair, why would Tamlin need to know all this?
Tamlin knows much more than he's alluding to. I think he is cluing in on her powers and is I don't know if he's in denial or anything with it. But he kind of came off of, well, if that is true, you're in danger. And instead of trying to help her protect herself, he's just like, I need to protect her. I need to protect her. More and more guards in order to protect her, because if people find out she has this power, it's not going to be good. As Rhys is like, ooh, you need to hold your own.
But he does address the time issue. He's like, listen, it would take decades for you to gain control of these things in a way that would be meaningful in your protection.
Yeah.
Which I think is just not true, but it would make sense if that's his perspective.
Yeah. And then she's also losing so much weight. She's been puking since the parties under the mountain.
And I don't think it has everything to do with anemia, so to speak. Or not anemia. What is that called? Bulimia?
Well, she's just so stressed. She's just constantly throwing up.
Is that not what bulimia is?
No.
Oh.
That's more intentional.
Wow. So here's the thing, guys. I don't know mental illness or physical illness.
Overall, she has been throwing up since under the mountain, since the parties. She is incredibly weak. And then she's had 2 weeks of relief from this.
Yeah. What do you do when you're Tamlin, though? Like, if you brought this up and you're like, hey, you're really a hurting unit, what can we do to fix it? And if she goes, nothing, I'm fine. How much further do you push that?
But that's where we see Rhys. He's continuing to push it. But also, when she's at night court, even if Rhys didn't push it, she is happier there. Things are better.
She's less stressed.
Yeah, she's less stressed. She's in a better environment. So even if Rhys wasn't doing anything different than Tamlin when it comes to pushing the issue and trying to figure it out, her just having a completely different environment is better for her. And Tamlin should be able to clue in eventually. Maybe after the third time she comes back looking better, healthier. Because I think after her first week there is when Rhys mentions there's the purple under her eyes are gone. She looks like she has her glow back even.
Yeah, I think that's going to become a huge point. I don't think she stays the full 3 weeks this time. You don't think she's going to
go back?
I think, so we ended on her going back to the spring court, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
we kind of ended on she's showing off more of her powers a little bit. She had frost and fire this time. But he would send her little tugs, and she never mentioned feeling any of this.
Yeah. And I don't know if...
And that was while she was at the spring court. He would send her little tugs.
No, I think you're probably right.
And even after this time coming back, she wasn't bantering with him as much. She's definitely hitting a wall of this cannot continue. And that's where it seemed like Rhys was just like, oh my God, like you're not, like he kept asking her to argue with her and she wouldn't do it. She just had no energy. She's just done. And now we're at the end of the week and she's got her energy back and she's showing some of these powers. I don't think we ended with her going back. We kind of ended on...
Tamlin was waiting under the...
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did. Yep. Okay, we did.
And he said, get inside.
It was so...
He didn't look her over for damage or anything.
No,
she said,
it was...
By the way, I'm totally fine.
It was more fatherly than significant other. Very, you go inside. And very protective. It was definitely more of a fatherly
You
role.
brought home somebody's daughter...
Yeah.
minutes after curfew.
Yes.
And you're getting ready to have your ass chewed and she's going to be in a little trouble.
That's exactly what it was like. Yeah.
Yes. I completely agree.
How much power do you think she got from each of the tiers?
I think I don't understand how their powers work, but if it's anything like my assumption is the traits the High Lords have, there are other High Fae that have those same traits.
Mm-hmm.
The power is just maybe not the power. I don't know how to put it. The output of those traits is directly reflective of the total power that Faye has, right? So I think she has all the traits of the 7 High Lords.
She has all the traits, smaller amounts of each power, but in total, that's where Rhys is trying to figure out, is it greater than all of them? Any one High Lord? Or...
Well, and that's...
They don't know how much they truly gave to her.
Well, and we just don't understand enough about their magic system. Right.
They don't even understand. It sounded like it was a gesture and hopefully it worked. Oh, it worked. She's alive. How awesome. But it seemed like how did they even know they could do this?
Well, here's my follow-up to this, though. I think within this magic system, what we need is a power scale, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because we keep hearing more powerful, less powerful. But if you're constantly just using referential points of
you should start writing it down.
Yeah, well, and I think that it should be a measure, right? Like, let's just assign arbitrary numbers to like the lowest powered High Lord, right? And if another person is, let's say, 5% more powerful than that
You
person,
want the book to say 5%.
No,
10%.
I want it to give me a number. Like, I think that's a use case of what is it? Mana is a magic system in like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. I think uses mana.
Yeah, but that's an actual game, so you need to know.
No, but I think that's a common trope of magic is there is always
I think that it should be less about a number and more about a display. We have seen Tamlin's power displayed in his fights, and we have seen a little bit of Rhys's power displayed in him killing somebody.
Have we know?
But yet we also saw him try to fight Amarantha when his power was reduced, and he was unable to do anything to her. But again, we got to see Tamlin's power against Amarantha, his full power versus her full power without, theirs being masked. So we see it that way. Rather than numbers, it should be in reference to, but it's not even just more powerful, right? Where favors like this person's more powerful. I think it's using the situations in which they're using the power that we compare and distinguish who is where.
Okay, but Rhys says the more powerful the person, the further they could, not teleport. What was the word they used?
Winnow?
Winnowing. Yes, winnowing. That's a fun word to say.
Yeah.
2 W's. That's fun.
So
anyway.
The more powerful they are, the farther they can go.
Right.
Do you think Pharaoh's going to go to different continents?
So this is exactly it. Now, we would know this if they gave us a definitive power system.
You see it when they're combating.
Combating. They're not fighting. They're combating.
You see it when they're fighting.
No, I want to go with combating.
Yes, when they're combating, you can see it.
Okay, so, and I think you're right, but like right now, do we actually have a baseline for who is more powerful, Tamlin or Rhys?
We don't yet, and I think that's intentional information that's being withheld from us.
Do we have any concept of how powerful, what's the wizard lady?
Iantha?
Yes. Do we have any actual concept of how powerful she is?
No. And again, I think that's intentional because we're told that she gains her power from ceremonies, but Feyre says she didn't have any aura of magic going on when that happened. Again, I think that is all intentional, and you are just butthurt that you don't get to know yet.
Yeah, I think I'm bummed out if they don't ever introduce a definitive system of power as opposed to just power sets.
It also sounds as though you gain someone's power when you kill them.
What?
Because think of how they get their father's power. It's not the oldest son next in line. It is the most powerful son.
So I took it as they already have that power. The idea was just eventually
they kill each other.
Degrades, and then the son's power is more so than the father's power, and that's the most powerful person rules the court.
We don't fully, I don't think we fully understand how the power is transferred, but it sounded like it has to do with a fight.
I never understood that it was transferred. I think that's...
He got his father's power.
Does it say that?
I think so.
Man, I believe you because again...
And it's the most powerful offspring that gets it.
Oh, man.
Which then kind of leads into I don't think he kills his dad. I don't know where this is going. Overall, there is some type of transfer of power because Tamlin at this point said, if it's true that you have this power of all these High Lords, he kind of mentioned, if you have a piece of my father's power, if you have any of that, people will kill for that. Why would they kill for it? They get the power when they kill her. That was my guess.
Very astute. I did not.
Because why would you kill for power if you don't gain it?
No, I sincerely looked at it like if we can kill them before they become too powerful for us to kill, we're just more powerful because the pool of power is diluted. Or less diluted.
Oh, yeah. I
think you're right.
I think it was people would
theory.
go for it, and that's how you get the power. And that's why it's the strongest offspring that gets it.
Shit. Oh, well done. That definitely changes the lens through which I'm seeing this too. It's so interesting. I suppose you kill them and then you have their tiers of the kingdom. And that's where the power comes from. Well, okay, but Rhys also brought up how it wouldn't necessarily be known to all the High Lords that they've given up a portion of their power through the revival.
Doesn't sound like they know. Rhys was wondering.
And Tamlin.
Tamlin doesn't seem to be wondering. Tamlin, it was being thrown into his face and he was ignoring it, as Rhys was curious, and now he knows. He's like, yes.
But I guess Tamlin didn't come off as surprised outside of when she punched him and he hit the floor, right? She pushed him and he hit the floor.
Who?
And the surprise on his face, Tamlin.
I remember this.
So,
why didn't I write this down?
I don't know.
When was this? What was this?
Like chapter 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But so that's the only time she speaks of Tamlin being surprised by her power, right? And then again, in I believe chapter 10, after she's shielded, there's a moment where she's like, I protected myself. And he is hitting against the wall.
She thought it was him, too. She's like, oh, my Tamlin has an explosion, but don't worry, he protected me.
Then she's like, never mind, I did it myself. But she keeps this force field up, right? Quite literally a shield, I suppose.
Long.
Yeah, but
which really shows that she was still scared of him.
Yeah, and does she have the conscious ability to do it?
Oh, yeah. Is she going to unintentionally hurt someone?
Yeah, is at this point just reflexive.
Yeah.
And I think that is where I'm excited for the training arc. I think we're going to get a training arc where she develops all of these powers.
Because, she could be very dangerous to others if she's not in control of it.
And Rhys brings this up where he's like, hey, you're not just a danger to yourself, but other people. If you don't get this shit under control, I want to teach you to control it. And she is still in denial of the fact that she has it.
Yeah. But it seems like at the end of this chapter, she wanted to see it. Because he asked, after she did the frost, he asked something to the effect of, what else can you do? And she switched it to fire because she was aware of it. But if she really didn't want any of this or to figure out, she wouldn't have done it. She'd be like, no, don't look.
It seems very tied to emotion. The frost was not anger. It was rage. She specifies that I wasn't frustrated. I felt ice cold, frosty rage.
Yeah.
And then it was the fire was frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the shield was
It's fear.
protection. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was
And I would argue chapter 9 and 10, well, probably not 9.
9 was nothing.
Probably 7. Chapter 7 and 8 were my favorite chapters so far.
I really like chapter 11. I love you.
I love you.
You're my bestie.
You're my bestie. It was a great time. We had fun. Now get out and go live your life.
No, wait. No. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate and love you all. Please follow us here, TikTok or Instagram at Shadow Daddies Podcast.
And then go live your life.
Bye.
Bye. Get out. We're done. This was Daggers and Shadow Daddies. Now it's my time. Toodaloo. It was fun for us. I hope it was fun for you. But that's all we've got. Goodbye. Come back in a few days. We love you.